we decide our own blessedness, and our blessing doesn't depend on what a man of God says or doesn't say. Our blessedness doesn't depend on if a man of God likes us, he doesn't like us. Our blessedness doesn't depend on if we go to the meeting on Sunday or we didn't go to the meeting on Sunday. Our blessedness doesn't depend on if we go to the night vigil or we don't go to the night vigil. Our blessedness doesn't depend on if we go to pray against witches and demons and witches and wizards or not. Our blessedness doesn't depend on any of this. Our blessedness doesn't depend on if we go for the crossover night or we didn't go for the crossover night. Our blessedness doesn't depend on that. Our blessedness doesn't depend on if we give first fruit or we didn't give first fruit. Our blessedness doesn't depend on that. Our blessedness doesn't depend on if we pay tithe or we don't pay tithe. It's not included in the list. Tithe is not included in the list of your blessedness. Our blessedness doesn't depend on if we pay tithe or we don't pay tithe. Our blessedness doesn't depend on that. Our blessedness doesn't depend on if we drink oil or we don't drink oil. Our blessedness doesn't depend on Ribena. Our blessedness doesn't depend on breakthrough, either we got the prophetic word or prophetic utterance by by one man of God, or we didn't get prophetic utterance by the man of God. Our blessedness doesn't depend on that. Our blessedness doesn't depend on, a whole lot of practices that are seen in the churches today. A lot of practices that we see in the churches today, our blessedness doesn't depend on them. Our blessedness doesn't depend on them at all.